Hi, welcome to the 3D lettering course. This is the image we'll be creating in the first episode, and if you're completely new to the 3D or Blender, it really doesn't matter. This is suited for absolute beginners. That said, I strongly recommend to go and check out the sushi episode because it will help you to get to know Blender a little bit better, how to navigate the viewport and how to use some of the features. But if you want to jump right in and do this first episode right away, that's okay too. I have structured the tutorial so there's no prior knowledge of 3D or Blender needed anyway. And there's one more thing, I'm taking a little bit different approach here. The first half of this episode will be without using any keyboard shortcuts at all. I really want you to get to know the UI of Blender a little bit better, to know where to find things, and this will be very useful if you come back to Blender maybe a little bit later, so you will have some visual cues where to find things, where to find all those features, even if you don't remember shortcuts. We'll do shortcuts a little bit later, but first we'll start just by using the mouse and the UI that's available in Blender. This can be very useful if you, for example, doing this on a laptop or if you don't have access to 3-button mouse. So it'll be a little bit easier to start right away. If you're using a mouse but you don't have a scroll wheel or a third button on the mouse, you will need to check the preferences first and make some adjustments. So if you go here in the edit and open up preferences, let me expand this a little bit. You will see there's an input option here, and there's an options to emulate numpad, and here you can see option to emulating 3-button mouse. The emulate numpad is very useful if you want to switch the view using the 1, 2, 3 and so forth keys on the numpad, but you're on a laptop, so if you check this you will be able to switch the view with the standard numbers on your keyboard. And the emulate 3-button mouse will enable the function where you can alt left click to rotate your screen, or basically emulate the click of that third mouse button. And I went over these a little bit in the sushi episode in the initial setup. So if you're, for example, on a Mac and you're using the Magic Mouse, go check out that.
В далекие-далекие времена жадные дворяне наживались на неграмотном народе. Хорошо, что у них был знакомый в Шервуде.
И сейчас, спустя века, узнать, как пополнять свои кошельки, а не чужие, помогает Sherwood.biz. Он может превратить тунеядца во фрилансера, любителя в настоящего профи. Помочь безыдейному стать гением. Хочешь привлечь клиентов в свое дело, научиться программированию или анимации, а может выучить чужеземные языки? Получить знания, чтобы заработать, тебе поможет Sherwood.biz. Заходи, узнавай, учись.
И позвольте мне сказать вам кое-что еще. Нет стремления более естественного, чем стремление к знанию.
So if you're, for example, on a Mac and you're using the Magic Mouse, go check out that sushi episode and set up your Blender controls so that it's most convenient for you. I will now close the preferences and switch to the default layout workspace. This is something you should see when you first start Blender. And the largest window you can see is called Viewport, and we can start to work on that 3D lettering layout right away. When you open up the empty Blender scene for the first time, you will see that the box selection is active in the toolbar here, and we can make use of that right away and drag a selection around all those things that are in the scene and delete them. So press X to delete, and you will need to confirm the delete by left clicking here. The first thing we'll need to create is some text, and we'll be using the standard text object that's available in Blender and that can use any font you want to create some 3D text object. So first of all, we'll need to add a new object to the scene, and you will see there are several buttons at the top of the viewport here. and one of them says add, so click that and you will see a bunch of different objects that you can add, and one of them is text, so just click that. And right now we'll need to position this a little bit and then rewrite the text and extrude it. So first of all, I want to bring your attention back to this toolbar, and a part of the selection tools here, there are a bunch of transformation tools, and first one is the move, the second is rotate, the third one is scale, and the last one is like a combined version of all of those, so we can make use of that and just click the transform here. And you will see a bunch of different circles and lines appeared here on the screen, and these are called gizmos, and they are basically for the 3D manipulation in the scene with the mouse. So if you hover over those controls, you will see they will highlight, and you can, for example, drag on an arrow to move on a particular axis. Let me go back, and right now I want to rotate this text 90 degrees counterclockwise, and I want to rotate this on the Z-axis. And as you can see, the axes are color coded. The X is red, the Y is green, and the Z is blue, and that's why all those gizmo handles are color coded too. So if you want to rotate on the Z-axis, so around the vertical axis, you will need to use the blue gizmo, and this one is for the rotation. So you can just click and drag and you will see we can rotate this. So do that, but don't release the button right away, because if you hold Control, and that's one of the few shortcuts we'll be using right here, if you hold Control, you will see you can do this incrementally, so there can be some precision. So let's rotate it 90 degrees like this and release the button so it sits on the Y-axis. You can leave the transform tool active for now, it really doesn't matter. And let's switch to some text options here. And on the right side here, you will see a bunch of different tabs. They're there so you can change the properties of your object or your scene. And one of them is this A, and it says object data properties because it's very contextual based on the object you have selected, but right now we have a text object selected, so this will be to edit our text options. And right here I want to go to the paragraph section, and if you're familiar with text editing, this should be pretty familiar to you too. So you can see there are some alignment options, some spacing options, all those things you are used to when editing text. So let's go ahead and switch the alignment for the text to center on the horizontal as well as vertical. So let's go ahead and switch this to center and the vertical alignment to center as well. And now I want to change the font, and if you want to get closer and rotate the screen, you can of course use the standard controls like middle mouse button and scroll wheel, or we can make use of this gizmo here. If you click and drag this, you can rotate too. And here the little magnifying glass icon is for the zoom, so if you click and drag, you can zoom in. And the hand is for the moving the view. So I want you to change the font of this text object, and you can find the font section right here in the object data tab. And here you can see entries for all those different font styles, so you can basically separately choose different font files for every one of these styles. And right now we're just interested for the one of those. Will not be changing the regular bold styles or anything like that, so just go ahead and click this open font icon. And if you're on the Windows, you should be able to see what I see here. It will navigate to see Windows fonts, so you can choose from your system fonts. If you have some particular font you want to use and you have the font file somewhere, navigate to that file and just choose it there. And I want to choose the Arial Black font for this image, so that's just right here. But if you're on a Mac, for example, the path will be a little bit different, and I think on a Mac it's on a Macintosh HD library fonts, and there are the font files that the system uses. but I don't know if the Arial will be there, so maybe you will have to use something like Helvetica or similar. So just go ahead, find your font files or your custom font and choose it from the dialog right here and click open font. You can see right away that the font is changed, so we can go ahead and rewrite the copy. And for every viewport you will see this button right here with the drop down. And again, for the different objects there will be different options. Right here we have only two, we have object mode and edit mode, and by switching these you basically change what editing options are available to you for that object. So in object mode you are able to move, rotate, and scale the object and a bunch of other stuff. And in the edit mode you will be able to change the shape or data of the object. So for this particular object, when it comes to text, it will be basically just editing text. So go ahead and switch to the edit mode, and you will see there's a typing cursor, and we can now just press backspace to delete the text and write a new. So this is pretty straightforward. Now go ahead and write create by holding shift, so we want this to be all caps, and we can now go and switch back to the object mode. And right now we can actually make it a 3D text, so go back to the object data tab. Here we can collapse the font and the paragraph section so they don't get in the way, and let's expand the geometry tab, and this is to make the text actually in 3D. And right here you will see there's an extrude option, and if you enter some value there, or you can just click and drag, you see there's the double arrow, and if you click and drag you can actually change the numbers in these inputs. So let's do something like 0.15. If you have trouble finding it, just go ahead and enter 0.15. And right away you can see this is now 3D text. If you rotate around a little bit, you will see it has a volume. Right now I want to create that second word. We can help ourselves by duplicating the object and just rewriting the words, so we don't have to create the text from scratch again. So right now you can just right click with the mouse, and that will bring up something called object context menu, and this again will be different for different types of objects, but some of the things will stay the same. And you want to search for duplicate objects option right here, and that's something you will use quite a lot, I think. So let's just click this, and it will enable duplication. So if you move your mouse, you can move the new object to a new place. But right now just click the right mouse button again to release it and place it on the original position. And right now you can just go ahead, click and drag the red arrow, so we'll be moving the object on the x-axis, and move it a little bit up like this so it doesn't get in the way. And now let's just select the original object, so left click the original word, and let's go into the edit mode once again, and we can rewrite this to more. So delete the text and let's hold shift and write more, and we can now exit the edit mode again, so go ahead and switch to the object mode. And now we want to position this a little bit better, maybe adjust the scale, so it'll be very useful to have a look from the top. And right here at the viewport gizmo, you can click one of these dots here to look from that side on the scene. So let's go ahead and click on the Z, and that will switch the view to the top view. And right now we can go ahead and switch our gizmo to the scale tool, and you can do scale with this universal transform tool too, but if you want to do uniform scale, I recommend to switching to this, so you can just click the white circle and start scaling right away. So let's scale to something, and if you want to have more precise control over your scaling, you can hold shift and it will do smaller increments, so it's much more smoother. Okay, so let's choose something like this, release the left mouse button, and right now I just want to adjust the layout, so maybe we'll move the create word a little bit closer, so left click that. Let's switch to the transform tool once again, click the red arrow and move this on x-axis a little bit closer, so you can see there's a grid, so it's like 2 units away from the first word. We can now reposition this to put it more in the center of the scene, so let's just select all, just drag a selection around this and click and drag the red arrow to move this more in the center, maybe something like that. And right now I want you to switch the view to the front, so there will be this green dot. We'll be basically changing our view like this, but in the orthographic view without the perspective. So let's just click the green button, and right now you can see the scene from the front. And what I want to do is to rotate this first word, so let's click just that, so only the first one is selected, and I want to rotate it on the y-axis 90 degrees, so it stands next to the other word, and the y-axis is green, so obviously we can use the green circle to make the rotation, and again we can use Control to snap to some precise angles. So let's click and drag the green circle and hold Control to make this 90 degrees like that. And one last thing I want to do is to move this up, so just click the blue arrow and drag it up, and again if you hold Control you can snap this to these grid increments. So let's move it 2 up so it sits here on this axis. Okay, right now we can rotate this a little bit and have a look from the side. You can click away just with the left mouse button to deselect, and yeah, this is your basically first 3D text you have created in a matter of minutes using just a few simple features. So let's move on to the next part here on this axis. Okay, right now we can rotate this a little bit and have a look from the side. You can click away just with the left mouse button to deselect, and yeah, this is your basically first 3D text you have created in a matter of minutes using just a few simple features. So let's move on to the next part.